Welcome to the LeaderCast podcast, a weekly deep dive into the stories that transformed our guests into leaders worth following. I'm your host, Joe Boyd. If you've been enjoying the podcast, thank you so much for being a listener. One simple thing you can do to help us out is give a review wherever you listen. Today's guest is Carlos Whittaker. He's a speaker and an author and a storyteller. He has over 250,000 people that are led by him and influenced by him on Instagram. I think you're going to love this podcast, especially if you've ever thought to yourself, how do I get along with somebody I disagree with? He has an art and a science to that you're not going to want to miss. Carlos Whittaker, welcome to the LeaderCast podcast. So happy to have you today.
Joe, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
I'm super excited to have you because you seem to be all about hope. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. I just feel like that's breath in people's lungs, man. And we're living in a season when a lot of people don't have it and a lot of people are looking for it. So I'm like, well, why not be the guy that tries to give it? So
I love it, man. I could use a little more. So I'm hoping that's what I'll sap some out of you. I'll get some.
Yeah, good. Good.
Tell us a little bit about, I know you're an author and a speaker and a storyteller, but tell us just a little bit about what you do daily and what you're passionate about.
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like the worst question when I'm sitting on an airplane and someone's like, what do you do?
Right.
And I'm always like, well, what's this week? But yeah, I think, at the end of the day, well, first of all, like I live in Nashville, Tennessee with my beautiful wife of 23 years and 3 kids and a couple chickens and dogs and, the whole thing on our little urban farm. But based out of Nashville, I write books and I talk about them, whether that be, on stage or on my phone, looking at my Instagram audience.
Yeah.
And I try to tell stories that lead people towards freedom in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Whatever freedom looks like for the individual audience. So it could be a bunch of dentists that I'm speaking at. I speak in the corporate space primarily, and that's kind of like the big picture. Oh, okay, he's a speaker, author. But what I spend most of my time actually doing is really talking to my phone. I have this really cool following on Instagram that these people we call ourselves the Insta Familia, and we try to. I just kind of try to have us give hope together. So we do a lot of fundraisers together. We do a lot of things that people on the left and the right and the up and the down and whatever faith you're at, nobody kind of asks questions when I'm like, hey, can we deal some hope to this individual that I've run across in the Atlanta airport? And everyone's like, yes, let's do it. And so I've just built, people call me an influencer, but I hate that word because I'm like 49. I'm like, you have to be 19 to be one of those things. Yeah. But I've been on the internet a long time. So I've built a lot of, we're already getting into leadership lessons here, but I built a lot of trust over time.
Yeah.
And that trust over time has really created this radical group of givers. And that's what I really love to do every single day and what I spend most of my time doing.
I love it, man. Influencer is a weird title. I will agree. I just turned 50, by the way. So,
hey, we're right there, bro. I'm right with you.
It's nice to talk to someone nice and young and in their 40s today. Because I
know.
I've been 50 for 8 days or something. So, but what we, social media influencers are leaders, right? A leader is someone people follow. So it's kind of a whole new a form of leadership that people kind of elect into, and it has all of its pitfalls. But there's something nice to know when people are choosing to be influenced, choosing to follow you, right? And it's a big responsibility. Yeah. Hey, I'd love usually for this podcast, I kind of like to frame it around like Joseph Campbell's hero's journey a little bit. Because I think we're all telling a great story with our lives as we live them every day, and then just kind of see where it goes from there. But if you don't mind, could you take me back to young Carlos, little kid or teenager or whenever you want to start? I'm curious what you were like when you were younger, what your aspirations were. Were there any sort of adventure stories that caught your attention, or just tell me a little bit about when you were younger and what was going on in your mind back then?
Yeah, I love this question. I mean, we're about to have some therapy with Joe because I love that. I love to dig back into that. I was a really shy kid, really shy, and I was, the son of a Southern Baptist Hispanic preacher in Southern California. Grew up. My dad was the pastor of Primera Iglesia Bautista de Pico Rivera, first bilingual Baptist church in Pico Rivera, and he would preach his sermons in English and in Spanish. And so, like, I had this father figure that was larger than life, right? Like, he was just, everyone adored him and loved him. And I just remember thinking, like, I could never be like him. Like, I can never be a leader like him. I had a stutter, and so I went to speech therapy, and I could never really articulate what I was trying to feel. So yeah, I was a shy kid. I had a great childhood. My parents were very loving. It was very supportive. But I was really shy, and I saw a lot of my flaws in me a lot, which I think really hindered the adventure in me. It really hindered me trying to do new things. And so, I wasn't even a really adventurous child. My brother, he was the one that would try everything. And, I would cry on my way to school, the first day of school every single year, because I was scared of what was going to happen. And, I would cry on my way to soccer practice. And I was really timid as a child. And so I did love, though, to watch adventures like unfold on, whether it be on TV or whatever. And so I was always like very captivated by adventures. Probably my favorite adventure. I would watch it all the time as a kid. Now, for those that don't remember that are listening or watching this podcast, we had these things called VHS tapes. Okay, they were you would stick them in a big machine and it would play. And my parents had bought me, and I can't remember how much the tape was, but they bought me the Goonies. Oh, yeah. And this was a film about a bunch of kids my age that went on this epic adventure. And my mom would say, Carlos, you love that movie so much, right? I mean, the adventure, they were going through tunnels and all these underground things and finding treasures. And so I know there was something in me that wanted to be a Goonie, right? There was something in me, but I never could get there. So I think I was attracted to adventure, but I wasn't necessarily jumping into it until later seasons of my life.
Yeah, sure. Can you pinpoint when you kind of broke through the shyness? Was it a gradual, or was there something that happened?
Yeah, no, I'll be honest with you. It wasn't until I was maybe 19. Like, all the way through high school, I just never kind of broke through it. Yeah. And yeah, when I was in college, I was a freshman in college. I took it's funny, I've actually never even thought about this. So yeah, I told you this was therapy, Joe. Good. So thanks.
That's my favorite phrase. You host a podcast too. When someone says I haven't thought of this, I'm like, here we go.
Yeah, you're like, yes, roll in, right? Okay. But I remember I took an elective in college, and it was a spelunking class. So it was like caving. Yeah. And it was like in North Georgia was the college I went to, Berry College, and it was like a spelunking class, right? So I remember thinking like, okay, whatever, like caves. I've seen movies about caves, whatever. But we walked towards, like, I just remember we walked into this field, and I was like, well, where's the cave? This looks like a farm. Like there's no hills, there's nowhere for a cave to be. And then we just kind of kept walking, and then there was just a hole in the ground that was like literally no bigger than like my body. And I didn't know what a panic attack is at that point. I didn't know any of mental health issues, but it all happened to me. And I was like, no, I can't do this. The instructor spent about 2 hours convincing me that I could do this. And actually not only that I could, but I think what I remember, his name was Jeff. He said that I actually wanted to do this. He's like, Carlos, there's something inside of you. There's adventure in all this. And there's something inside of you that actually wants to do this. You just have to find it. And so it took us 2 hours for me to find it. And I did. And I slid down into that hole, which turned into the most massive cave. And we went through, and I had the most incredible time. And I just remember coming back out of that cave thinking like, okay, wait a second. What have I been missing in my life because I'm too scared to do things, or I'm too, I think I'd broken through my shyness, but I hadn't broken into the adventure. And so now, I look back then and I think, oh my gosh, like that's why I am doing what I do now. That's why, like, there's healthy fear, but there really isn't anymore. I love to fail. I fail every day. I try to fail. I've got a fail journal that I keep every single week. Like, if I don't have 3 things that I failed at that week, then I haven't tried hard enough. And so, yeah, man, I went from like not wanting to fail all that stuff, and that was the moment I think that I broke through into that adventure.
That's amazing. I can't help. I got to geek out for just a second, right? Because in story theory, there's this whole thing about the hero going into a cave. Like, that's what they call it. And you actually literally did what every hero has to do. And you were talking about the Goonies, and the thing you said about the Goonies was they were going through caves and you were too scared to do it. It's all right there, man. That's a whole.
It's all here, bro. It's like I'm like they wrote the book about me.
Right, exactly. This is totally. I'm a Star Wars nerd, so like even I don't know if you're about the same age, but when Luke has to go see Yoda in the cave and he faces Darth Vader in the cave and he ends up striking him down, and then the mask comes off and it's Luke's own face, and that is story cave theory,
bro.
Right there. So you have to face your fear
101,
and in facing it, and you just proved it like that. That's such. I hate to get too excited about it. That's just such like a spot on image of what we all have to go through. We all have to go to in our cave, all of us, right?
Oh my gosh! Well, there it is. I am now going to use this in all of my talks because of you. So boom, there we go.
Yeah, just a little sub note. It's actually Joseph.
I'll just get a little sub note, little asterisk.
All right, I love that. So you come out of the cave, a new man, you're ready to go, and then I would assume at 19 or 20 you didn't imagine I'm definitely going to be a speaker, author. There weren't podcasts, but podcast host. So what? But here you are. So I always tell my kids are in their early 20s. I say, it's not important to like know what you want to be, but it's important to have something you think you might want to do, so that you can walk that direction. And in walking that direction, it unfolds for us, right? So, where did you think you were going? What direction did you want to pursue?
Absolutely. So in that season, I remember thinking to myself, in college, I loved kids. I loved being around kids. I loved being a camp counselor. I was kind of doing all these things. It was just so funny to think right now, like about if I would have continued in this career path. But I just said, you know what? It's just funny, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, Joe's making me think. I remember thinking, I may not be able to lead people that are like my age or older, but I can lead little ones. I can lead little kids. So I kind of dove into like I want to be a middle school English teacher or something. So I started majoring in middle grades education, and I wanted to be a principal, and like that was slowly but surely the path that I was heading on was going to be in education. And I was excited about it, and I dove all in. And to make a long story short, 3 years into my higher education journey, I think had gotten so adventurous that I'd forgotten to go to class. And I suddenly was just like, I literally got academically expelled from the college that I was in. And so slowly but surely, like the education thing was falling apart for me. And I remember feeling like shame, like, I think nowadays, a lot of parents are like, listen, you don't have to go to college. Like college may not be the path for you, which that was not the conversation when you and I were leaving high school. It was like, it is college or nothing, And so I think maybe college wasn't the right thing for me. I think maybe that wasn't it. And so, the teacher thing disintegrated in front of me, and I picked up a guitar, and I, realized, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And I started doing music. I started doing music at my church back then, and started playing in like little clubs and little bars around town. And next thing you know, that kind of became my thing. Yeah. And I spent the next kind of decade of my life playing music. Like, who in the world would have thought that that's what I would have been doing? But that took, I think that took a lot of adventure in me as well, and a lot of facing fears of what if, I'm going to be standing in front of a lot of people. Most of these people did not pay money to come see me. So it's like an audition every single night I was out. And so that built a lot inside of me. And so I kind of started heading into the music sphere.
We rebooted our podcast, I don't know, several months ago, and it had gone, I took over LeaderCast a couple years ago, so I'm sort of new to the position. And so I didn't host the podcast in the olden days, but I have like the last 20 or so, maybe 25. And I'm just saying that because one of the things I could never have predicted is how many of our guests actually had a career like stint in the arts. Yeah. It's been really fascinating. And a lot of, musicians or actors or comedians or whatever. And that's a little bit of my story. I did improv comedy for a chunk of my 20s and with the Second City and stuff. But I don't know. It's just fascinating that there may be some role to that helps shape us somehow. It's a mystery to me
I
right now,
agree.
but so it doesn't surprise me, I guess, to hear you say that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah,
Um,
man.
so when did the way I think about it, you're developing your musical voice sort of and your talents, and I love the idea of auditioning every night as a next performer. I totally get that.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
and also, when I see anybody that makes a living playing music or performing, doing a cruise ship or whatever it is,
Right.
I always tell
Right.
my kids that's hard. You have no idea how many people tried
Right.
out for it. So you learn a lot of
Totally.
lessons that way. But when did you start to realize you had a voice to inspire others and want to
Yeah.
maybe write or whatever?
Yeah. So here I am in my 20s through my into my 30s, and I'm playing music in various avenues. Right. I'm playing music in again with the little band that I formed. We're not making any money, but we're just trying to
Yeah.
get gigs. But then I end up landing a job as a worship leader in a church, and I for 10 years am singing songs on stage in front of a lot of people that love me because we're in a relationship
Right.
together. And I'm
Right.
like, dude, this is the gig,
Yeah.
man.
Right.
Like I'm not playing in front of people that don't like me. I'm playing in front of people that love me, not because I can sing, but because they just like me. And so did that for a decade of my
Yeah.
life, and it was awesome, right? So then I ended up moving from that place in Riverside, California, to a place in Atlanta called North Point, and was a worship leader there, was a singer there, and kind of oversaw production. And I got a little bit more kind of leadership in that stage of my life because, this is actually an important thing to say. When I was in California, one of my bosses, I remember asking like, "Hey, can I get some help like on my team? This is just me and a bunch of
Yeah.
volunteers. Can I maybe get like an assistant or something like that?" And I'll never forget. This was another kind of key moment in, I think, pausing my leadership journey.
Yeah.
One of my superiors at the time said, "Hey, Carlos, listen, like you're really good at singing. You're really good at being on stage. You're not really good at being a leader, like of like people. Like you, I don't know if you can handle like having like someone work for you. You stay on stage, be a great performer. Let me handle kind of the leadership off stage."
Okay.
And Joe, I'll tell you something. When he said that, there was a lie that got embedded inside of me that for years I thought, oh, I guess I'm just the guy that should be on the court, the athlete, not necessarily good at anything
Yeah.
else.
Yeah.
And so I think that really paused my leadership for about 7 years.
Wow.
And then I got a call from North Point, and if anyone knows Andy Stanley, he's just a phenomenal leader. And Andy offered me a job where I had like 20 people reporting to me. And I remember thinking to myself, well, and I mean, I wanted to let them know on the way out, look at me now. Like I got, but the problem was I didn't know how to lead these people. Like, so I suddenly had a team, and I was, I tried my hardest. I had a lot of leadership bruises and bumps along the way while I was there, but had a fantastic time learning under the leadership of Jeff Henderson and Andy Stanley. Was sitting underneath them for 2 years. And here's where it shifted. I had signed a record deal and I was about to leave North Point. And Andy called me one day and he goes, "Hey, Carlos," I just got done singing in front of the church that morning. And he called me. He knew I was leaving. He goes, "Hey, I just need to let you know something. The reason why you're a good worship leader, quote unquote, isn't because you have a great voice." And I just remember thinking, "Oh, thanks, Andy. Just give me one more kick on the way out the door. This is great." He goes, "But the reason why you're a good worship leader isn't because you have a great voice. It's because when you walk on stage, you convince everybody that you're their best friend. And what you say between the songs is actually more powerful than what you're singing during the songs."
Hmm.
And that was the moment when I thought, well, maybe I'm a better talker than I am singer.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm better at that. And so, I went on this journey, did a couple, moved to Nashville, put a couple records out. But I did realize pretty quickly, wow, I'm actually really good at, sometimes I would take 10 minutes between a song and talk to the crowd. And more people were like, that's the thing. Like, that's the thing you need to be doing. And so, it was 2015. I made the decision. I said, you know what? I'm going to stop doing music, and I'm going to try to turn my 10-minute talks between the songs into 30-minute talks.
Yeah.
And I was begging every person I knew to let me come speak. I don't care if it was a fifth grader or a bar mitzvah. Like, I'll
Yeah.
speak
Yeah.
anywhere. Your kid's birthday party, and that's what I really kind of grinded for a few years,
Yep.
just speaking as many places as I could. And now, it's funny because I was primarily in the faith space then. Now I spend 90% of my time, maybe almost 100% of my time in the non-faith space, in the corporate space.
Yeah.
Which just it's incredible. I was standing at like a Nike designer summit in front of all these Nike designers a couple months ago, and I'm talking, and I just kept remembering the voice inside of me that was told 20 years ago, hey, you're just keep singing. You're not a leader. Like, don't really say anything. Like, and here I stand in front of, all these people that are trusting me to help them navigate life situations. And man, it's been a journey of me saying yes. It's been a journey of me stepping into adventure. A lot of failures, but without any of those failures, I wouldn't be where I'm doing now. Talking to 273,000 people on my phone every day, raising. Just 2 weeks ago, I live in Nashville, Tennessee. We through my Instagram account, we raised for the Covenant families here in Nashville of the shooting. We raised $273,000 in 24 hours, just through my Instagram.
Wow.
And I just think to myself, this is it, man. This is what I want to be doing. And I'm glad I didn't listen to the lie back then, and I jumped in. So
yeah,
that may be more than you wanted.
No, I'm just sitting here like I'm glad too. Like, it's just the shy kid. Of course his life's going to pan out, so he has 250,000 people listen to him, right? And we had Andy on the podcast a while ago, and he speaks almost every year at LeaderCast. He has the record for number of people.
He's like
speaking.
The OG.
He's the best. He's just such a good communicator and good leader.
Yes.
But the tie-in, I as you were talking, I was thinking of just that one sentence or two that he said to you, and how it shaped your life. And then the one sentence or two that Leader to Remain Nameless said to you, that held you back for 7 years. Because in Andy's podcast, two of the things he talked about mentorship a lot, and he talked about how just exactly this. He had two like women in his life when he was like a teenager. That just said a couple things to him. Like, one was a Sunday school teacher that said, you're going to be a preacher someday, basically. And he's like, no, that's my dad's thing. I'm not going to do that. But it stuck with him. Right. So and just how parallel that is with him just saying those things to you and
to me.
Yeah. And
it changed the trajectory of everything for me.
And that's, I think the lesson I take from it is, I know I can walk, I'm self-deprecating to a fault. Like, I just assume everybody knows I don't know what I'm doing. And you forget that some people actually look up to you and think you know what you're doing.
You're right.
And so
totally.
We can get so, folks like me anyway, can get so like down on ourselves that we forget every single word we say to someone. We may not remember it ever because we're not thinking that way, but those people might remember it for the rest of their lives. And it's part of leadership that is hugely important, I think.
Every single interaction that I have with another human being, I think I'm leaving a lasting mark on this person. And it may last a minute, or it may last a freaking decade.
Yeah.
So just weigh everything that you say, it's so important.
I want to talk to you about, help me get the phrase right. Cause I don't know if it was your latest book. Is it How to Human? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
And then I also saw on whether it's your podcast or whatever, something like, you tell me, but it's like, I don't take positions. I walk with people or something like that. What's your phrase? What's the phrase you use?
I mean, I kind of like that. Maybe I'll put that on a t-shirt. But what I say is, I don't stand on issues. I walk with people. And that's definitely become kind of the phrase of the Insta Familia, of when I communicate. People trust me because of that, and it's something that I'm trying to help people do. In my most recent book, How to Human, I think the subtitle, it's so funny because the subtitle's 3 ways to share life beyond what distracts, divides, and disconnects us. And I remember when my editor sent that to me, I was like, that is really fluffy. Like this is, I get it. Like that actually does describe what we're trying to do in the book, but this is actually hard. Like to really be a leader in this season in such a divisive season. Like, how can we do this? How can we lead people well? And so I had a friend of mine, a pastor friend of mine named Mike Ashcroft, that told me that about a decade ago. He goes, Carlos, he said, I don't stand on issues. I walk with people. And oh my gosh, like what a mind blowing statement for me to be like, wait a second. That doesn't mean that you're not opinionated on an issue.
Right.
That doesn't mean that you don't believe in an issue. What it means is that the people that see life differently than you, instead of just standing there yelling through your megaphone, why don't you just walk over to them and walk with them for a minute and see what happens? It's not going to change your mind, but what it's going to do is change your relationship with them. So suddenly that's become my the thing that, again, as I'm traveling across the states speaking to corporate clients, the whole be human, see humans, free humans, don't stand on issues, walk with people. It seems to be a message right now that's really resonating because there's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of relationships that are falling apart. And I think it's because we have leaders that we see visibly that are leading, say, our country or our districts, that they're not doing this walking with people thing.
Right.
And I'm like, man, how about a new generation coming up and saying, I think we can walk with each other again. And I love it, man. I feel like I'm in the sweetest spot I've ever been in as far as leadership. And I pull my Insta Familia up quite often, and it's still mind blowing. It still sits at like, it can depend on the day, but it's like 48% lean to the left and 52% lean to the right. And I'm like, how are all of you people in the same place at the same time? And I think it's because I'm trying to lead them in a new way.
Well, first of all, I love it. If I was going to challenge you on anything, I'm like, that phrase sounds like I want that in my life right now, but is it too aspirational? Is it actually possible? Is it really possible? Because some of our positions or whatever become so rooted in us. And for some folks, it becomes like a justice issue. Like it's just hard for me to walk with someone that pick your issue is on the complete opposite of me, because I just feel like it's not, it just feels wrong, that what they're doing feels wrong. Yeah. So how do I walk, and I'm sure you feel that tension all the time.
I talk about, I feel the tension all the time because, again, I just have to continue to remind people that walking with somebody is not turning your back on your values. Walking with somebody does not mean that you are agreeing with that person. But as we do this, there will be limits, right? We have to have boundaries around it. So there's some people like, here's a great example. As a Black man living in Nashville, Tennessee, I'm probably not going to go to a KKK rally, 60 miles to the south and walk in and go, hey, everybody, my name's Carlos. I'm here to walk with you. Why is that? Well, because they're probably going to dehumanize me and they're not ready for that interaction. And so there's a lot of dehumanizing that's happening in the world today. And so we have to protect ourselves. We have to protect who we are. But also, I challenge people that are like, Carlos, I just can't do it. Not them, not that person. And this is all I think to myself is, not everybody's built like me, but also, how is that person that you are so vehemently disagreeing with ever going to even remotely change if nobody walks with them? Yeah. So like literally, we're just going to continue to get more and more divided unless we make the decision to walk with each other. And I do feel like there's a rising generation of leaders that are going to be okay with this. And yes, listen, I got a lot of very strong political beliefs. Yep. But I am making sure that I am in relationship with people that don't look like me, think like me, vote like me, love like me, talk like me, all the things like me. And when I do that, what happens? My empathy grows. And when my empathy grows, I think it's just, we're able to have conversations around a table. And so, yes, right. Like you can put "Don't Stand on Issues, Walk with People" on a t-shirt and it can feel like, hey, this is what I'm doing. But let me tell you something. When it's time to actually do it, it's going to take something deep within you to actually pull that thing off. And so it is difficult. It's not easy, which is kind of why I wrote the book, to help people with this hard moment and journey in their life.
Yeah. There's a phrase, someone very famous, I think, said it, but that it's hard to hate face to face.
It is.
People can do it. You can learn to do it, but it's much harder when you have to look someone in the eyes and say, "I hate you because of the color of your skin or what you believe or your what you know what I mean." Yeah.
Right. Joe, listen, this is something that I do. I tell leaders to do this all the time. So people come out, right? I mean, obviously, like I speak my mind on Instagram. I tell people what I believe about issues on social media. Like I don't hide it, but I also am in relationship with people that don't agree with me on these issues. But whenever I do that, obviously I will get like people screaming at me with their thumbs, right? Like sending me DMs like, you're a horrible, like I tell people all the time, I'm not an airport. You don't have to announce your departure when you unfollow me. Like it's okay. But they do. But you know what I do every single time? If someone's like raging at me in a DM, I open up my camera and I hit record. And I go, hey, person A that hates me. Hey, it's Carlos. And I just want to say, like, I hear you. And I know that we're probably not going to see eye to eye, but I just want to thank you for sharing your heart with me. Bro, they open those videos. These are strangers, and they don't know what to do because suddenly they see me eye to eye. Yeah. I am 2 inches from my phone, and they have a hard time hating me. And I'm not trying to be best friends, but I'm trying to show them like, hey, like this is a real person that's reading what your thumbs are pounding on your 6 inches of LCD. Right. And I want you to see. And so a lot of times I'll get like, hey, thanks for the video. Like I know I was really passionate about, and suddenly there's this walk back because we're not as mean as our thumbs make us sound. And so, yeah, it's hard to hate somebody face to face. So do it more often. Send some videos.
Man, I've loved talking to you. This always happens when I'm into it. We're like out of time, which is really lame, but probably good for you. I'm sure you got stuff to do. But man, this was great. And I hope we continue to be a part of the LeaderCast community. Somehow we could do this again or find some ways to
I would
connect.
love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. I love what LeaderCast does. I've been to a few of them and just absolutely love the vision, especially the new vision that I see coming out of it. I just appreciate what you're doing.
Oh, thanks, man. And your message is exactly what I need. And honestly, just this conversation has me a lot more excited about the rest of my day. So just thanks for being you. And before we leave, how can folks find you, get your books, find your Instagram, whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. The place to hang out with me every day is on Instagram, Loswhit, LOSWHIT. If you want to see Carlos working on his bees at home in his backyard and the backyard bluebirds and helping people, kind of soft, fluffy Carlos' Instagram. If you want to see maybe a little bit more like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, you can follow me on Twitter. I'm a little bit more raw over there. But just those are the places, man. And then you can buy all my books, wherever. So.
Thanks, Carlos. Awesome to have you. We'll talk to you again soon. I appreciate it.